mixing in your calls throughout the course of the night with you until 9 p.m. tonight. As gentlemen, it was a competitive game early, and I don't know how else to put it other than the Titans got chargered, right? The LA Chargers doing what they do best this season, grinding out wins, and that's what they did tonight at home against the Titans.
Yeah, I think the story is on repeat. You know how I used to put an old CD on repeat and you just let it loop itself? I think that's similar to this game. I think you saw glimpses of an offense that can go down the field methodically and do things efficiently and put points on the board, although that second half drive ended in a field goal. But you've seen how they can use multiple weapons and be something of a team to be reckoned with. But then there's the other side of this team. Special teams, again, has a lapse that kills momentum, penalties, sacks, inefficient on third downs, things like that kill drives and kill momentum seem to be the thing that just hovers over this team and their ability to get over the hump. I thought defense held in strong for the most part, but then there started to be the little chips in their armor of late as well, where they couldn't get stops when they needed to get stops. That last drive of 95 yards, that was an opportunity. Again, talk about momentum, potentially building momentum. That was a prime opportunity right there to cut the field, get them off the field, and leave your offense with potentially a short field to deal with and maybe go down and get the lead in that game. It didn't happen. And again, that's the new tag everybody likes now, complementary football, where there's a difference in somebody doing something that wasn't complementary to the other group, whether it be special teams, defense, or offense today. I know we're going to talk a lot about Will Levis, and I'll let everybody get into that, give my opinion later. But that's from my vantage point. If I'm a coach, I saw what I needed to see, and I'll get into specifics on that later. But all in all, it obviously wasn't winning football, but it was all over the place. Defense is at fault, special teams is at fault, offense is at fault, coaches are at fault. But I'm saying that, and there was good things in today's games where you see glimmers of hope. So it remains to be seen with this schedule to remain in Minnesota next week. We all know what they bring to the table, so it's going to be challenging from here on out.
I think Brian Callahan said it best in the post-game presser. He said this is the first time that they've been out-physicaled. Now, I don't know if I agree with that, but the message of the game is they got out-physicaled by and large. Special teams, defense, offense, just like you said. Defense was probably in the big scheme of things, the least of their worries.
Yeah, agreed.
But it still led to a game-changing or momentum-changing kickoff return where Nick Folk just kicks it at the 1 yard line, didn't kick it out of bounds. And then Luke Gifford, who, by the way, for a guy getting paid, I think roughly like $2 to $3 million is overpaid. Okay, because I mean, the whole point of a Luke Gifford when they signed him last year was he was some special teams ace from the Dallas Cowboys, and now through two different special team regimes, there's nothing special about Luke Gifford. I think we could just throw that out there and say that. Listen, they're trying all kinds of different ways to create momentum on special teams, and none of the player combinations seem to work consistently enough. But at the end of the day, no one's going to agree with this statement in the moment. But I'm going to make a statement that may shock people because I'm a known Will Levis hater. I think what you saw today, if you were the coach of the Tennessee Titans, if you're Brian Callahan, was a quarterback that did show progress, did show that he learned something. The problem is that the game is still too fast for him. He is moving much slower mentally and processing much slower than defenses are moving, much slower than what his offensive line can hold up. Now, Brian Callahan said he did think 2 sacks were on him today. He'd have to go watch the rest. I think about 3 or 4 could technically be on him, but we'll see when we hit the all 22 and everything. So to me, it's like you didn't see the mistakes, but you still saw the slowness. And sometimes reps will speed up the game for you. And he just hasn't had a consistent amount of reps lately. So I do think that he did some good things, but here's the bigger issue. That's all well and good. So you can, if you're Brian Callahan, you can look at this game and say, okay, he can still progress. He has made progress, but he can still get better. But I think we still have yet to see any evidence that he is the guy for this franchise. And ultimately, that's the big question that needs to be answered. And I personally think it's been answered. Not so sure that the building thinks it's been answered, and those are the guys making the decision.
I think to your point about Will and his processing speed, I think some of that is, you got to be able to process and make snap judgments and throw the ball to the correct people. But some of that is anticipation, anticipation of movement. And I go back to that Green Bay game and the coverage that it was, and knowing who's out there, who's a veteran, who squatted and just got that pick six. And there was no anticipation. He just locked in, and I'm going here, and got a veteran corner and said, I'm about to get me one. Please throw it over here. And that's exactly what he did. I think there's that in Levis, is that he's got to get better at anticipating movement and where guys are going to be in the holes. And again, until you say that, then I can think of 2 or 3 throws that he made in tight windows, anticipating throws, going on people's heads and things like that. And you're like, I see the ability, right? You don't get drafted as high as he did and not have ability. I think you got to be able to put the matched ability with the cognitive, and then the physical ability. It just becomes easier, because if you look at the physical ability and attributes, he's physically more gifted than Tom Brady. Would y'all not agree?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a better arm for sure.
Better arm. He's a specimen. I mean, he's more athletic.
He's always been known as a quarterback that if you were to build a quarterback in a lab, it would probably come out looking like Will Levis.
Right. So if you're gifted as an athlete, right? What separates you and Tom Brady? If you're more physically gifted than a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers, I think he's more gifted athletically than even Aaron Rodgers, who's still pretty athletic. It's the cognitive, it's the processing, it's the mental aspects of the game, anticipation. If you watch Hard Knocks at all this year and you saw Aaron Rodgers, he was going through his checks. He said, ready, and then he said, you're going back to the deep half. Said, and then he already knew. He's seen it. He's already processed it. He knew where he's going to football, and then what happened? He completes the ball. And I think that's where we are seeing where Levis is lacking. And I don't know what's different between him and Daniels, him and Stroud, and some of these other young quarterbacks who seem to have figured it out. But as I'm looking at the screen behind you, Zach, Goff, he's talking about that this year, how the game has slowed down and how he's able to anticipate how the game has come more mental for him, and realize after talking to people like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, the guys who weren't quote unquote athletically gifted, but they were gifted mentally and they could process things a lot faster. And that's why you see guys like Mahomes and guys like that who can process what's in front of them and anticipate throws. And that's where Will is struggling.
So he maybe had his most efficient half this season for the Titans in the first half today. 7 of 10, 77 yards, 1 touchdown, the 41-yarder to Calvin Ridley. He was sacked 2 times. Now, on the day, Will Levis sacked 7 times. And like you said, Callahan said he attributed 2 of those to just holding on to the ball too long.
I'm thinking of 3, at least maybe 4 like Zach said.
I think there's 4. I don't know which play it was, and I don't think it was one of the scrambles, because he kind of talked about Levis getting out of the pocket. But there was one, Lucas wasn't in here, it was just me and Jackson watching the game, and I screamed, throw it 3 times in a row. And I believe that's almost 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So
And if you're hitch, by that third going on 4th hitch, and if you're not going to release it, you should be running.
This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. You can jump in on the F&M Bank chat as well, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, where I'm seeing a lot of folks chiming in on the conversation. Again, 615-737-1045 is the number. So Levis on the day, 18 of 23, 175 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We talked so much about Will Levis this week and how he was on track to play and what you wanted to see out of him. And it felt like the number one thing was 1 game with no turnovers, right? And he got that. The one game with no turnovers.
Latham saved it.
Yeah.
Big boy run.
He fumbled and Latham scooped it up and got on the
that
run.
was one of those sacks I thought was on him. That I thought he was late. He pushed up a little much in the pocket. I do think Latham set a little deep because of the distance between him and the defensive end. I think he was in a wide 9, and I think he set kind of deep for where he was. And I thought Will stepped up a little too soon, trying to anticipate maybe the pressure on it. I don't know, but that was one of those sacks I thought that you can kind of put that on Will.
It was like the most Chargers game ever, right? I mean, the Chargers who prioritize running the football so much. When you think Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh and the LA Chargers this year, it's about running the football. It's about game control and all of those things. Yet they don't light up the scoreboard. They're not leading the league in rushing, not even close. They rush for 145 yards today. They outrushed the Titans 145 to 132. They outgained the Titans 309 to 289. And we talked about this all week long, understanding this was going to be the type of game where you were going to get, 7 possessions in? On the Chargers scoring drives, all of them series of 12 plays, 9 plays, 8 plays, 11 plays, 7 plays, and 11 plays. So they didn't have a drive shorter than 7 plays that resulted in points, and they had multiple drives of 11 plays or more. And like you said, Dice, the backbreaker, 95 yards, you finally pinned them on that punt, down 10 in the 4th, and they just grind you down all the way down the field, and it's former Titan Hassan Haskins punching it in. So what's the more disappointing performance tonight? Is it Levis and some of the holding the ball on for too long and the processing stuff? Or is it the defense allowing the Chargers to kind of grind them down in that way?
I'm going to say defense. And that may be the unpopular opinion among maybe fans right now. But I have begun ever since the Green Bay game, and it's not been consistently the defense's fault, but I have questions about what this defense sees on film before the team plays them. Because last week heading into that game, we heard Arden Key say, well, we don't have to worry about the quarterback running and all this kind of stuff. And then you get kind of conflicting messages about that.
No, Herbert's a good player.
And that was with Drake May, who's uber athletic, who's basically Ryan Tannehill-esque in his athleticism. And then here's Herbert running on you. You're playing Greg Roman. You know he's going to run the ball, and you could not stop it. So, and maybe it's just the players that you have and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, for all the people who have wanted Brian Callahan fired and Denard Wilson to take the head coaching job, or afraid that Denard Wilson's going to get a head coaching job after 1 year, I think we could settle down on that talk right now. And I love Denard Wilson. He is a rookie. And let me clarify this. I love Denard Wilson, and I think he is a talented, smart coach. But he is obviously going through his rookie growing pains, just like Brian Callahan is going through his as well.
Yeah, injuries play a lot on both sides of it too. So I think the jury's still out on both of them. I side on defense, maybe for slightly different reasons. When you got a young quarterback who is still trying to figure things out, coming back off injury, having a team pinned back is an opportunity to help that situation out. That's an opportunity to help your young quarterback out. I get it. They were maybe tired. Again, they grind. But statistically, I'm looking at it, it's not that big of a difference. 132 to 145, that's situational. I'm playing behind the numbers a little bit. I'm going to be throwing a little bit more. So that to me is not necessarily a knock on either side. And then I look at Will Levis' numbers. I mean, what are we basing – Where's his judgment line? Who are we basing his success off of, again, other than himself, right? And if I'm basing it off of his success against himself, that's a great day. That's a positive 127 passer rating, 2 touchdowns, 18 for 23. What's that, 68, 70%?
And no turnovers.
And the sack numbers, albeit 7, it's only 18 yards. It's not 7 for 80. You know what I mean? So it's him. He's now stepping in the pocket, and at least the sacks are not monumental as far as a 12-yard loss and things like that. So it's still manageable downs after the fact. And so to me, it becomes what defense, you got to help us out a little bit. Here's a guy just coming off injury, still uncertain, and you have a team pinned back on the 5. We need you to get off. 3 and out, that's ideal. But at least don't let them cross their own 20, and then you're still dealing with a shorter field, and you give yourself opportunity late. And that's why I picked the defense.
And Next Gen Stats has him with over 11% completion percentage over expected. So that means he completed a higher rate than he was expected to complete. Yeah. And that's been kind of the Will Levis MO for all the bad that Will Levis has had all year. His completion percentage over expected and his completion percentage in general have greatly improved, which again is a credit to Brian Callahan's development. It's the other stuff. It's the stuff that Brian Callahan can't control.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the issue of this whole quarterback development, conversation is that this is stuff that Will Levis has to go work on. I read an article where Brock Purdy went to some new system that's used for Major League Baseball pitchers and stuff. And it is a program that works on your time to throw, your mechanics to get the ball out quicker, and all this kind of stuff. And in that article, it says all these trips to, where the quarterbacks and the wide receivers go together, it's really just about reps. Yeah. You're not fixing anything. You're not working on anything. You're really just going out there and playing pitch and catch, or you're playing into the playbook. You're not going up against the defense. You're not really improving anything in those situations. And so Will Levis has to figure out, doesn't really have time to do that this year, but he's going to have to figure out regardless if he's Tennessee Titan or not, find other avenues to try to improve his processing, his mechanics, and all that kind of stuff.
I do know of a friend who does a VR. He's from Stanford. He did it with Kevin Hogan and all that. And you're not taking physical reps or anything. It truly is a VR system. You put the plays in, and people are coming at you, and you have to process and make the plays. And it's just cerebral. It's just your mental aspect of the game, and that might be something to invest in. I mean, who am I to say I can send it to the Titans, tell them the name of the system and everything else. But
we're all just looking for answers here.
But I guess the more reps you can, we watch film and you see it on your iPad or whatever, and you watch it and you can anticipate. But it's one thing when the bulls are flying right in front of you. So the way technology is nowadays, a VR system is not outside the possibility of reality for any team. I think teams are going to start using that, especially with the way the league is with putting young quarterbacks in right now, that you can put them to a VR system and really the bulls are flying just like you would any other time, and just having them process. And that's probably going to be part of the combine at some point, to see kids and young players processing ability and how fast they're able to dissect defenses and things of that nature. But that's a little off topic. But I think what you said, Zach, is one thing about like people's expectations on Will Levis. And I was thinking about that driving in today, is what is the expectations that we have for Will Levis? And I think the casual fan is they want to win games. Had he had these numbers and they won, people would have looked at that as a positive note.
A big step.
A big step forward, right? Because we ended up winning the game. I think right now he is victim of his lack of success so much early on that today's leap forward doesn't seem big enough. But what I will say this, I didn't see that bonehead play he did against Chicago. I didn't see that one he did against Green Bay. Who was that one he had was in field goal range? Who was that?
Against the Jets.
With the Jets. I didn't see that today. I saw a guy who was making the right choices when he made the right choices in time, right? So as a coach, as an organization, I say, okay, now can he string these together? Can he get better next week? Because if he continues to get better, then they potentially can win some of these games. But does he regress and go back? Now, I'm not saying he was knocking the socks off by any stretch of imagination. I'm just comparing him to himself in previous games.
Right.
That he is, like Don Fox said, a football player never stays the same. You get better, you get worse. He was a little better today. Now,
and I don't think that he's, unlike other losses, he's not fully to blame. And then we said that at the top of the show. We've talked about that ad nauseum.
And you would take that.
Yeah, and I think that's okay.
Well, hold that thought, because I have a question for both of you guys about exactly that, the type of progress that we did see from Levis, how much more there still is to see at this point in the season as we wrap up Week 10. The Titans fall in LA to the Chargers 27-17. We're going to get to your phones on the other side as well. Got a few lines open, 615-737-1045. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. More of your phone calls coming up next on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback is presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Welcome back. I'm Lucas Panzica with Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons. We're going to get to your phone calls in just a moment. 615-737-1045 for you to jump in. And look, there's a lot to talk about here. The defense giving up a 95-yard scoring drive in the fourth quarter. Special teams issues popping up again. Pass protection, 7 sacks allowed by the Titans today. 0 sacks delivered by the Titans today. And we're going to get to all of that throughout the course of these next 2 hours. But of course, Will Levis has been the key talking point after each and every time he sets foot on the field for the Titans this season. Again, 18 of 23, 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 127.4. So I'll ask you guys, and Katie, I'll start with you, as we talk about that sort of barometer that we just wanted Levis to pass on. Hey, don't make the bonehead play. Don't make the crazy flip pass to the sideline or the lateral to Tajay Spears or staring a guy down interception. Get through one game without turning the ball over. And he did that today, yet we started off the show talking about, taking sacks that were on him and the lack of processing. So does it kind of feel like today, despite the fact that he finally did that, he got through a game without a turnover, it kind of makes you realize how much longer he does have to go. Yeah. Because you say, all right, good, he checked that box, but we're sitting here talking about processing, and it's like, oh, that wasn't the only issue here with Will Levis.
Yeah, that's why I said, where are we comparing him to? Are we comparing him to other quarterbacks or comparing him to himself? If we compare him to himself, it was better than what we had seen, but does it still equate to something that, like Zach said, does it still equate to him being the quarterback of the future? I don't necessarily think that's off the table either, right? I don't think he's giving you that hope that, man, this is the guy. Like, we saw wonderful play today, but he, compared to what we have seen, he got better. He wasn't doing anything damaging. He delivered the ball when he did, as accurate as there was some fundamental things and throwing across his body and stuff like that, but he still made 2 really nice throws really for the touchdowns. Both of them were excellent throws. So you see glimpses of it. Again, some of it, Callahan, I think, is play calling too. But if he can get to that part of processing and not taking ill-advised sacks, helping his offensive line out and still deliver the football, now you got something. Now we're talking about a different type of conversation. We're really saying, man, he's really getting better. Today was like, okay, it wasn't bad, but it was okay, right? But I think we've built this whole conversation up so much that we want to see something almost phenomenal that we can hang. Even if he threw a pick, you know what I'm saying? But he was like throwing for 300 yards and dropping dimes, then have 7 sacks. I think we'd have been like, okay, we can see something now. But today was just like,
But I will say, I agree. It's mediocre, right? But like you say, it's an improvement over the Levis that we've seen. Yeah. And to me, someone on Twitter today said, when is he going to get benched? And I said, or how many games do we have left before he's going to get benched? And I said 8. Because he's playing the rest of the season if he's healthy. And today you saw why they're going to do it. Because I do think there is a possibility, maybe not highly probable, but possible, that Will Levis improves on today's game and gets better, and we see more and more. We got to remember he's 3 games rusty. We have to remember that this offense has kind of been pivoted and tweaked a few times. As we've heard, they're doing motion, they're doing play action more, maybe doing some of the screen game a little bit more effectively. The offensive line has overall performed better these last 3 weeks since we've last seen Will Levis. So they said everything. We don't expect any drop off. And to be honest, today's game is nothing that we haven't seen from Mason Rudolph. So I don't really think there was really any true drop off from offensive play. And you're just going up against a much better team than you have on defense, at least the last 3 weeks. And to me, I don't have hope that he's the franchise guy, but for a staff that truly believes that they're trying to figure out whether he is, and they have hope that he can be because they've seen enough good things. I still think you've seen enough good things, but until he can process the game faster, the evaluation is very lopsided in the wrong direction because you have to have a fast processor in the NFL, and you have to be quick to diagnose post-snap, especially in today's defense, especially when you're going to have the Minnesota Vikings come, who are one of the most confusing defenses from what you see in pre-snap to what they do post-snap. They're one of the most confusing defenses for any quarterback, and now you're going to have Will Levis.
Now, I will say the element that he added was 5 for 41.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, they got him going a couple design quarterback runs, which isn't something we necessarily saw with him before. That kind of got him going a little bit early.
Yeah, and again, that's an element that not everybody has, right? And including Mason Rudolph. Like, that's something that he adds that some people don't. So,
yeah.
I know, I'm trying to be somewhere on that half full side of things and talk about, because comparing him to himself. And again, I know that's a easy way out for me, but I think like a coach in some regards, and what I have on my roster and what I have to evaluate on my roster. And so looking at that, I'm looking at my quarterback. I'll say, well, did he play winning football today? Well, he didn't play losing football, so to me that's a win, right? Because he didn't do the fumbles. Well, he had the one fumble, but the big play mistakes, all that kind of stuff. He was high efficient percentage completion rate, 2 touchdown passes, all those things. And so, okay, so now what? People around him, how did they perform? Did the line protect? Did they get their calls right? Did we have any drop passes? I don't think we had any drop passes today either. Was he able to run the football effectively? To Zach's point, we did 21 for 132, 6 yards of carry, but I think the game got taken away from them because they couldn't stop somebody late in the game. They gave up those long drives, to your point, Lucas, of 7, 12, 11, 9, I think was the number of plays. Mm-hmm. Defense was tired. So at that point, we're playing behind the scoreboard a little bit. So it kind of takes a lot of the running game out of it in some regard, too. So, I know we're going to beat this over the head a lot, and I'm sure these callers have their opinion on it, too. But, to me, if like anything else, and even in what we're doing in here, try to be better tomorrow than I am today. So that's the ultimate dream, right? That's the ultimate goal, is to be better than I was the last day. The next day, I'm trying to be better. And I think that's all you are, as a coach, ask a Levis, just incrementally get better. And he took a step forward. Was it a giant step for mankind?
No, but like you said, it's incremental. I think we all agree he got better.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to Malik Willis year 2 was better than Malik Willis year 1, but that's a really low bar, right? Like, it was a really low bar for Will Levis to clear. I think he cleared the first hurdle. Now there's another step that's in front of him that he has to take. Yeah. And then there's another step after that game, and you keep on building, and that's how you build and progress a quarterback. That's how you develop, right? Yeah. It's not everybody's going to get a Jaden Daniels. We've seen Caleb Williams take steps and then regress already. Yeah. So now it's time for Will Levis to take this step and start building on it. He's got to build on this foundation, and the more that he does, the more that will be put back onto his plate. Because I think you talked about conservative play calling a little bit, and I think there is something to that, but I think that's also to protect him, who's he's really just rusty on some of these plays. And listen, I think he played okay. I would say that a B- would be the grade that I would give him. Maybe a C+. I mean,
managed the game.
He managed the game. He managed the game well,
which is what you'd been wanting to see from him.
Yes.
Right? Like we said, low bar, but he cleared it. And then for the next step being that processing and wanting to see the game slow down for him. So he did that today against the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. And then, great point by you, next week he's got to do it against the most blitz-heavy defense in the NFL. Luck. So there's a big challenge for you to take another step in your processing ability as a quarterback.
You need to have 6 offensive linemen on the field. Two right tackles, and then I think that could maybe slow down the Vikings just a little bit.
That's another takeaway of today. The Titans still have no idea who their right tackle is, and it doesn't look like they're on pace to know at any point this season the way it's been going so far between John Ojukwu and Leroy Watson. Those were the 2 platooning at least today. We'll see what that looks like moving forward.
You just another crutch example of we still trying to evaluate a quarterback where he's at, and yet you still have to solidify your offensive line to say, You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's another crutch, if you will, for Will Levis. I didn't get a full glimpse of his capabilities because we hadn't been able to protect him.
615-737-1045. This is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. We will go straight to the phones as soon as we come back as the Titans fall 27-17 at the LA Chargers. Your phone calls on the other side on 1045 The Zone. Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company, moves on 104.5 The Zone. Titans fall to 2-7 in Week 10, 27-17 the final against the Chargers, who improved to 6-3. It was the 50th all-time meeting between the two franchises. LA now has a 30-19-1 advantage over the Titans/Oilers all time. Taking your phone call, 615-737-1045. We are presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Let's go to the phones and lead off with Eric, who's up first. Hey, Eric.
Hey, guys, before I get into what I want to talk about today's game, I just wanted to say tomorrow's Veterans Day. Shout out to all the veterans, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Man, appreciate that.
All right. Hey, guys, as far as today goes with Levis, I'll take any positive I can get, considering what's happened, the fact that he's been out the last 7 weeks with the shoulder injury. I definitely agree with what you said about his holding on to the ball and all that type of stuff, but the fact that he didn't make any blunders plays today, at least that's positive I can take from that. But as far as the game goes today, guys, what was frustrating, of course, was when I guess we was up 7-3, and then we had the drive where we got inside down around the 20. The two back-to-back penalties on number 72, Watson, that drove us out of field goal range for Nick Folk, where he missed the kick, and I think he also had another penalty earlier in the game. I don't know what he wound up with. He had at least 3 penalties a game. That was frustrating. And, guys, I don't care what anybody says. That was a fumble right before the half. I will die on that hill that was a fumble. So frustrated to hear that explanation where they made it on the field, the call was stand, and then they got overturned by New York. And, of course, there's nothing you can do about it. But that definitely had to be deflated. And then the second half, certainly where we, I guess, had the ball half of the third quarter, get the field goal, and then, boom, 56-yard kick return within a minute, they're inside the 20, and bang, get a touchdown in just a little over 3 minutes after that. That was just so frustrating to see that. And then, of course, the 95-yard drive when we had them pinned inside the 5. It just seems like, guys, every time it looks like something good happens to us, it seems like you're waiting for the shoe to drop and something disastrous happens.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, it's the way it is, the way the season goes. Guys, y'all take care, tighten up, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Eric.
It is. It's like, and it's somebody different, it seems like. 2 weeks we were talking about punt return coverage, and now we're talking about letting them off the hook on a kick return where you have opportunity to get in some momentum. Then you pin them deep and they go 95 yards. And, it seems like every time you take one step forward, you take 2 back. And you don't overcome whatever that 2 steps back is. And last week against the Patriots, they were able to, even though Patriots made a stunning play there to send into overtime. That was just a remarkable play by him to sit there and linger and then throw that ball falling down and put the game in overtime. So even with that, they still found a way to win the football game. They overcame bad special teams play. They overcame some things. Today just weren't. It was a better team, obviously, with the Chargers
right.
being better.
I think that's really, if you really just want to boil it down to one sentence, the Chargers are a better team than Tennessee Titans.
Yeah,
I mean it's just as simple as that. There are reasons why they're better, but they were clearly the better team, and it is a team that has been better than most of the teams that they have played this year. They're one of the best defense in the league. They're one of the most efficient teams on both sides of the ball in the NFL. I mean, it's just again, it's been against bad teams, but again, this is kind of what I said when I was talking to Brent Doherty, but when we were leaving the studio and they were coming in on Friday, we were talking with producer Joseph as well, and I think the Chargers are a little fraudulent because they've all their losses come against teams with winning records, and the only team they beat is the Denver Broncos with a winning record. But then I'm like, and they've beaten teams with bad quarterbacks and losing records. Well, this is a team with a bad quarterback and a losing record. And even though the quarterback didn't play poorly, is not the main reason that you lost. He's also not the reason that you won the game. And at the end of the day, the quarterback's got to elevate the team around him to a certain extent, and he's just not there yet in his career. But at the end of the day, the Chargers are just clearly the better team.
Well, they'll find out about themselves later. They still got the Chiefs twice, I think.
Yeah,
they still got them twice. And then Denver again, who's playing better. They lost one today to the Chiefs where they should have they probably should have won that game.
Yeah, Chiefs, for anyone who missed it, stay undefeated, blocking a 35-yard would-be game-winning attempt by the Broncos on the last play of the game at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
So they stay unbeaten. Noon slate was crazy today. Could get into a little bit of that later on. So we hadn't brought up the sack fumble turned incomplete pass that Eric brings up that happened at the very end of the first half.
Talking about momentum killer.
Momentum killer is right. And at that point, it was Chargers 13, Titans 7. Titans went 3 and out. They punted the ball back to the Chargers inside the 2-minute warning. So the Chargers had the ball on their own 23 with 36 seconds left on the clock in the first half, up by 6. Titans were set to get the ball to start the third quarter. Titans thought they had forced the strip sack. Big Jeff comes screaming in. He knocks it loose. The ball went forward, but no whistle. Roger McCreary scoops it up, returns it 20 yards for the touchdown. And it looked as though the call was going to stand, right? And then New York comes swooping in and says, no, that's an incomplete pass. Brian Callahan is furious on the sideline. He told Mike Keith after the game that he didn't get an explanation. It was simply that New York said incomplete pass. Paul Kaharski just tweeted out the explanation from the NFL VP of Instant Replay from that play. An interview from NFL or PFWA pool reporter Joe Reedy with NFL VP of Instant Replay Mark Butterworth. What was the basis for the call on the field and then the overturn? Butterworth said the on-field officials ruled that it was a fumble recovered by the defense and in for a touchdown. All scoring plays are under the jurisdiction of the replay booth in New York. We stopped the game as there was a significant question as to whether his hand was coming forward with the ball. Once we went into review, all we need is the hand moving forward with control of the ball, and so we ended up overturning into an incomplete pass. He said when his hand was moving forward, he had control, it was tight, and we were going frame by frame, and as his hand was moving forward, he had control and then lost it. So we overturned it to an incomplete pass. And then they asked, what was the angle that you decided to overturn it? Because the two that were shown on the scoreboard, it didn't look conclusive. They said we were going through angles and there was an enhanced angle from broadcast that we could see the hand coming forward. Again, we're going frame by frame, and the hand was coming forward with control of the ball, and then he lost control of the ball. Do we agree or disagree with the call?
Oh, and by that definition, that's exactly what happened. But
yeah,
my argument would be, is his arm coming forward because of the momentum of the tackle of Jeff and him trying to get, you know what I mean? I don't know if he was trying to throw a sidearm like he trying to make it seem.
Well, I think once you get to a certain point, because they keep saying the hand, right? Mm-hmm. And see that, I think that's the difference. So when Big Jeff comes in, he's chopping down. Mm-hmm. So it's not coming forward, but his hand goes forward. But do I think it's conclusive enough to overturn the call on the field? I would disagree in their instance. And now they got all these fancy angles, supposedly, like they ever really use them. It's the first time we've heard all these about these. Well, we have a fancy angle, and boy, they got some CSI guy going, enhance, enhance, enhance. But because they don't use it on any other plays, but I guess because Tennessee Titans are playing, they decided to bust out the new technology. I don't think it was conclusive enough to overturn it. And to me, I can see, I do think that he did make a good play. I don't know how much of it is him pushing the ball or how much of it him is actually the flick of the wrist.
Right.
And that to me is something you cannot get off of any angle. I think it was inconclusive, but at the end of the day, it just didn't go. The ball didn't bounce their way, as Rank Carthon would say.
In that situation, the ball did not bounce their way. Absolutely. So it's crazy, though, that each of the last 3 seasons now, there's been a play like this where it is as 50-50 as 50-50 gets in terms of an officiating decision, and the Titans are 0 for 3, right? Yeah. In Jacksonville with the division on the line, Joshua Dobbs, Arden Key, right? Yeah. Who I can't remember if he had the recovery or the hit. I think he had the hit that caused the Dobbs fumble/incompletion. That went against the Titans in New Orleans last season on what would have been a scoop and score touchdown that would have won the Titans that game. Mm-hmm. That was reversed the other way. And then today against the Chargers. Yeah, momentum, right? Because that would have put you up 14-13 going into the half.
Get the ball back.
Burst of energy. Right. Come back out. Get the ball back to start the second half.
Which they got a field goal out of.
They did, and that was not to be. And the Titans fall 27-17. So it's not Mike Keith, like Mike Keith said post-game. Is it the reason why you lost? No. But it was a huge, huge part of the momentum swing before halftime in that game.
Can be the reason why you lost, right? You lose momentum. Mm-hmm. I mean, momentum's a real thing. It's kind of why I was scared about putting Will Levis back in, is because you ruin you don't ruin it, but you could stall out the momentum. Again, Will Levis isn't the issue. This isn't the issue, but this is all. If we're going to say that momentum can be a big thing, but all these things that happen continually to the Tennessee Titans seem to be momentum killers regardless.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Let's go to Adam next on the zone. Hey, Adam.
Yeah, man. So Zach usually disagrees with me, so I'm surprised he's agreeing with me today. I can concede that the 2024 Titans are not as good as the 2024 Chargers. But that felt like a fixed game. For all these people that are screaming, it's rigged, it's rigged, that play felt fixed. Like, it's so bad. It's so egregious, dude. It's not even close. His hand was hit. It was moved. And then there's a big person standing in front of it. So if there's another angle, show it to us, because you didn't get it from the broadcast, dude. Like, he was hit. The ball was coming out. And, of course, that changed the game. We were going to be up. Like, if you're a sucky team, which I say we suck, everything has to work out. That worked out. And then they took it away from us. You're not going to come back from that. Brian Callahan has proven he does not have whatever innate ability in coaching to bring his team back from that, dude. So, of course, like, I'm still fired up about that play. Like, I got so disgusted with it. I'm like, well, we're done. They may win by 4 or 5 touchdowns now because we do not have the ability to pick ourselves up after that. So I thought it was an egregious miss and just kind of a shame that it ended like that.
Thanks for the call, Adam.
And margin of errors for bad teams. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
The Titans need that call.
Yeah.
Right? On the road against the Chargers, who aren't going to make a ton of mistakes. You have to have that call, and they didn't get it.
Yeah, well, by the rules, that's exactly what happened. And I go back to, 1998, Charles Woodson. That's why we have this whole rule and the arm movement going forward, the tuck rule. I thought that was a fumble. And how that changed complexity of that game, of course, it led to Tom Brady going to the Super Bowl and winning his first of many, that sort of thing. So I don't know, by how you read that definition, if that's what it is, that's what happened. But again, how do you overturn that in the moment based on everything I don't know. Again, that's why I
think if they would have called it not a fumble, then you would probably be like, okay, well, then that makes sense. It kind of does look like his arm's going forward. If they were to challenge that it was, let's say they called it a fumble on the field, and Tennessee Titans challenged it that it was a fumble, there's no way that they're getting that overturned on them.
No, sure.
Because they would come out and say the evidence didn't show or it wasn't conclusive enough or something like that. But for the Tennessee Titans, like I said, they bust out the magnifying glass and get Sherlock Holmes up there to make sure that this call goes against Tennessee Titans.
It could have been either one, but I do feel like anytime there's this much debate and you can make the argument on both sides this much, that it should never be overturned.
Right. I think when you have people... When you have that, it's inconclusive.
Right.
That is the very definition of inconclusive, and it should not have been overturned in that situation.
Anthony is next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Anthony.
What's going on, y'all? Real quick before I say something, did y'all catch Coach Mack at the end of halftime where they're describing Callahan going up to the refs, being all mad?
Yes. I know what you're talking about.
He's like, I think he should put his hands around his neck.
Yeah. So I think you should grab him by the throat.
Yeah, grab him by the throat.
Mike Keith said, no, maybe don't do that. I love that. Yeah. Coach Mack getting on about the refs is always high quality entertainment on Titans radio. But yeah, it felt like you had to have that call, and you didn't get it. Game wasn't over. It's a 6-point game, right, going into halftime, but a big blow to momentum there.
It's 2 weeks in a row, Coach Mack was getting after these refs.
This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. So 7 sacks given up by the Titans today, 0 sacks against Justin Herbert by the Titans today, as right tackle just continues to be an issue. So it kind of a balancing act, right? Whether it's Will Levis holding on to the ball too long, right tackle continuing to be a turnstile. It does seem like, though, KD, that they are no closer to finding someone that can just do a job there at right tackle, right?
But do you agree with the back and forth, though?
You tell me. From a player's perspective, if you put yourself into the shoes of a John Njoku or a Leroy Watson, what are the pros and cons of that sort of platooning, desperately trying to find an answer?
To me, that's almost something you do in the preseason and just trying to get an idea who's more ahead than the other. in the regular season where, especially offensive line, where communication and rhythm and feel is such a big component of any play of a game, that rotating guys, I can't imagine being the right guard and having one understanding with one guy and not necessarily knowing what the other guy is, or vice versa. Like, I just feel like that's a recipe for disaster. But on the flip side, I understand you just want somebody to take the lead, say, I'm that guy, and nobody is stepping up and saying, I'm that guy, leave me in here. But it just seems like a recipe for disaster to continue to rotate guys through in a position where, of all positions on the whole football field, aside from quarterback, they come out the least. Like, they're literally every snap on offensive football. Even D linemen rotate, other than corners and safety for the most part. Corner, safeties, and offensive line and quarterback. Everybody else gets a breather at some point. They don't. So now you're telling me you rotating guys. I mean, again, they had the reasons for it, I'm sure. And part of that is, I need somebody to step up and be the man. And I get that, but it just seems like something like it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised that the idea going in was to keep rotating him, because it, for all intent and purposes, it was working. It wasn't great, but it was working. Now, today, I will say this, Dylan Radins wasn't very good either. That right side just wasn't very good. And I look at it this way, Leroy Watson, you get 3 penalties. I wouldn't have put you back in the game. I am so surprised they ended up putting him back in the game. Now, he ended up with just 3 quarterback hurries. John Njoku ended up with 2 quarterback hurries and a sack, according to PFF. Now, this could change by tomorrow morning rolls around. So I'm looking at it and I go, man, would you rather have the 1 sack or the 3 penalties? And to me, I think I would rather have the 1 sack over the 3 penalties. And I love Leroy Watson. I think Leroy Watson has the dog in him. He has the fight, the want to. But the penalties are just killer. And I don't know if this offense cannot sustain penalties. Mm-hmm. It can sustain sacks more than I think it can sustain penalties. And I think that I think you need to roll with John Njoku as your RT1 in quotation marks. And then, if you want to rotate in Leroy Watson, rotate Leroy Watson. I think Njoku should be getting the majority of the snaps in this weird rotation.
Either way, it's clear that they're just looking for an answer, right?
They've said, too. They want someone to come and take
it. Please,
and nobody
take this role and it seems like the pecking order, feels like Nicholas Petit-Frere is the one on the outside looking in between those two, but man, that's a low bar, right? To be ahead in that pecking order, given how much they're rotating. You wonder if Jalen Duncan hadn't gone down with that injury, how much he would be a part of this. And
listen, NPF was active today. He wasn't inactive.
Didn't play.
And they didn't ever put him in. And now you begin to wonder, you got Isaiah Prince was kind of working in the rotation a little bit this week.
You're right.
You got to wonder, is next week one of those situations where they're going to abandon ship on Leroy Watson and John Njoku and then try an Isaiah Prince NPF rotation? Like, what are they going to do? Because we know that they are quick to pull the trigger on this right tackle situation because they sucked at filling the right tackle spot. They did a terrible job. It is what it is. That's a Rand Carthon, Bill Callahan mess up, in my opinion, because obviously Rand Carthon asked Bill Callahan, who do you need? What do you need? And they didn't. They felt whatever they had was good enough.
Okay, but what answers would have been out there?
Well, Jermaine, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Jermaine Amulunifor is a really good right tackle. Listen, I love Tavondre Sweat, but who would impact a game right now more? Going tackle in first and second round or tackle Tavondre Sweat? Who would have been better than Cedric Gray if you would have got a right tackle in the 4th round and invested something there? I mean, I'd have to go back and look at which tackles were available, but this was a tackle deep class. Guess what? What isn't a tackle deep class? The 2025 draft class. So this was a situation where one or two people lacked foresight. Maybe both. I don't know. But someone lacked foresight on the right tackle front.
Well, I think you got to look at free agency again and try to find somebody. But teams are not stupid. They're not going to let go of a guy. They'll franchise him, extend him, whatever, especially when you're protecting your most valuable asset, which is the signal caller. So I think you start looking at it from a fan and analyst perspective, what's out there for next year? Is there a left tackle where you can move the rookie, be a second-year player back to the right side, which he was most of his college career? He's been playing left and being solid, but is there a veteran left tackle when you can make that move? I don't know. But when you had Lawan and Conklin, two young tackles, one was all-pro and the other one made the Pro Bowl very early on, that was pretty substantial. You thought, we got two guys for the next 8, 9, 10 years. Well, the injuries happen and everything else like that. So that was the last time where you felt, and that's how sad that is. That's a long time ago, right? Where you had two solid guys on either end. So I don't know what's out there for next year as far as free agency. And, as soon as you say that, somebody's going to get tagged. Somebody's going to get extended. What's the name at San Francisco? Big guy.
Trent Williams.
Didn't he get tagged this year too?
No, he got a deal. He held out for a while.
So here's a guy I'll throw out there, Jedrick Wills, who has been having a little bit of injury issues, is officially benched, even though he's healthy, because they thought that Broderick Jones is playing well enough that he won't get his left tackle spot back.
Has worked with Bill Callahan.
Former right tackle for University. So he was J.C. Latham before J.C. Latham.
Yeah, at Alabama.
Now, that's a guy that may get paid a lot in free agency because he can play left tackle. But if you were to bring him in and maybe get that guy as your right tackle, he's still young because he just is finishing up his rookie contract.
Yeah.
So he's still young. That is an option this year that is on the table for the Tennessee Titans. Will they take it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the thing. You may have to swing big for a right tackle.
What's their cap number last year? I know they had a big cap number this year. What is it for next year? Do y'all know?
I don't know off the top of my
We
head.
can look it up and tell you on the other side. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Titans Talkback, presented by Elite Company, continues coming up next on 1045 The Zone. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone, alongside Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons. I'm Lucas Panzika. Jackson Williams, our producer. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll be with you until 9 o'clock as we look at the Higginbotham right call of the game. It was the deep shot dialed up for Will Levis to hit Calvin Ridley 41 yards for the touchdown on the Titans' opening offensive series that put the Titans up 7-3 early at SoFi Stadium. Remember, Higginbotham can be your business teammate by helping manage your risks, limit your liability, put a plan of action in place, and control your costs. Insurance plans for your company and your assets. It's all online at Higginbotham.com. While we're talking about Calvin Ridley, that takes us right to the Kellum science behind the stat. Ridley was the fastest ball carrier on the day for the Titans at 19.25 miles per hour on that touchdown catch that we just referenced. The fastest ball carrier on the game was Chargers kick return man Darius Davis, who hit 20.74 miles per hour on the 56-yard kickoff return that set up a 43-yard Chargers drive, ending with a Quentin Johnston touchdown catch that made it 20-10 LA with 3:24 to go in the third. From autism to arthritis, your body, your cells, your solution. Call 615-850-4415 for your consultation. We left the last segment talking about the Titans salary cap tracker for 2025. Currently, the Titans have just over $73.5 million of cap space for 2025. That currently ranks 7th in the NFL. And KD, they may need to use some of that money to get some guys that can track down punt and kick returners, because once again, special teams a talking point with the 56-yard kick return that was allowed.
There we go. And I'm glad y'all shared that number with me, because, I know this year was a kind of a spending spree. And the way Rand did some things, made some moves out the offseason, got some guys paid. But as we talk through this year, and playoffs they're not mathematically eliminated, but let's call it what it is, right? So now you are starting to think forward. The trade deadline coming past, all those different things. What is the move next year? So how are we evaluating? I think Zach presented a nice little example of how you can get a guy of value that's still early in his career, in his prime of his career, that could be a staple and combination guys that can be here for several years, where you feel, okay, I've invested a good amount of money here, but I feel good about it for the next few years. So with that being said, I'd be interested to see where they put a premium on in this offseason. And again, we didn't talk about this, the quarterback. Are we going to invest in the draft depending on where you fall? A couple 2-win teams won today, so I'm assuming the Titans moved up.
3.
They're 3 right now?
Yep.
So
You said 3 2-win teams won?
No, sorry. They're number 3 overall. They went from 9th last week to number 3 overall in the draft today.
And do you see one of the top 2 or 3 guys being a Stroud, Jayden Daniels type impact?
I don't want to get the chat all riled up, because our chat always devolves, at least Blaine and Cover 2, always devolves into Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. I came to the conclusion last night easily that I just don't see. I don't think there's any argument to be made that Shadur Sanders is not quarterback number 1. And what's crazy is I don't know how it changed overnight, but last night while the Georgia game was going on, or yesterday while the Georgia game was going on, Carson Beck was still favored to be the number 1 overall pick.
How?
I have I'm betting boards. I have no clue. I don't even think he's going to be a first-round pick at this point. But I understand that it's Shadur Sanders, Cam Ward, pick your poison. But I'm not here to chase the Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes kind of prospect anymore. I think Shadur Sanders is probably the only true day 1 starter. Now, here's the caveat to that. If you are a coaching staff that's in a situation, and we're getting a draft talk, I can't believe we're getting a draft talk. Stop me. If you're in a situation where you have the ability to sit a quarterback and let them learn, this is the class. But not every team has that. And we don't know if the Tennessee Titans have that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the way.
And, even like with Allen over in Buffalo, his rookie year, he took some lumps. His his trajectory reminded me of Peyton a little bit. Peyton played decent his rookie year, but he threw I think 20-something picks his rookie year.
Well, what's the record? 28, 31?
Yeah,
something like that.
He threw a lot of picks his rookie year. But look what he did after that. And he's a guy who studies the game, understood, and he got better each week. And they knew we're going to take our lumps because he's the quarterback of the franchise. The only other time I heard anybody say anything as far as quarterback being surefire that I remember was Andrew Luck, which I thought in that time the Colts had the number 1 pick. And I'm like, good luck with that. You're replacing a legend who was considered surefire, and he ended up being surefire, right? You know what I mean? Lightning don't strike twice in a bottle, and it sure did, because he ended up being every bit of good. If he's healthy, he probably wins. Well, they're in Super Bowl contention if he wins, if he's healthy, right? Is there a guy, which I don't think you guys would say yes to this, but are either one of those guys a surefire? Are they Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning?
There is no generational quarterback in this draft.
Right.
Well, and that's where my whole thing about this. People thought Trevor Lawrence was generational.
Yeah.
Some people use,
right. That's right.
But I didn't agree with that. To me, there has been no generational quarterback prospect. No generational quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. In my mind, it's been John Elway, then Peyton Manning, then Andrew Luck. And that's just kind of how I view it right now. And listen, John Elway had his troubles at the beginning.
He sure did.
And so did Peyton Manning. But they were considered generational quarterback draft prospects. Well, let's be honest, nobody from the Will Levis draft class, Hendon, all 5 of them, all the quarterbacks drafted, none of them were considered generational. So we got to understand that there is a limit. But that doesn't mean that you can't find a Jared Goff, right?
Yeah.
Like, Will Levis can turn into a Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill. Do you have the patience? Do we have the patience? Does the team have the patience? Like, all that kind of stuff is
Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
You can go down the list of
who
guys.
threw 3 interceptions and 0 touchdowns today.
It's starting to even off a little bit.
It's starting to even off for the Sam Darnold stuff. So, I mean, we'll see what Arch Manning is, right? Like, I think Arch Manning probably is the best chance of anybody to be the next generational quarterback. But we'll see.
That name carries weight.
Yeah.
Because even Eli didn't necessarily have that moniker.
Listen, my first exposure to Eli Manning because at a certain time I wasn't really paying attention to football, for a year. That Eli Manning, my first exposure to Eli Manning was the Memphis game, my first University of Memphis game back in 2003, and he threw 4 interceptions against University of Memphis. And then I'm like, this guy is going to be number 1 overall. Now, listen, he won some Super Bowls, but he's not generational.
He's not.
You know what I'm saying?
The Manning name carries weight. So I was with the Chargers that year when they drafted Phillip Rivers, and I remember we were having this conversation of Manning being the winner. If he's anything close to his brother, and you don't pick him, you look like you don't know what you're doing. You have to take him. And it's going to be the same thing for Arch. Like, if he's anything close to Peyton or even Eli's career, because Eli, he didn't win a couple Super Bowls, and you didn't pick him, and you needed a quarterback, you look like a dummy as a
he'll be the guy. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to call it generational or anything, but I mean, what he's done, he's looked really good. But he's not coming out to, supposedly the rumor is he's not coming out to 2027.
Yeah, we're talking 2027 draft.
You want to do a 2027 mock draft?
I'm going to save us from this real quick. Because we need a break.
He hates it. He hates talking about it.
We're going to go to the phone, 615-737-1045. As soon as we come back, this is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. More Titans Talkback next on The Zone. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. This is Titans Talkback on 104.5 The Zone alongside Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams, our producer, as we look to our Kroger Sacks for Cash. Tonight, Titans had no sacks, so Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee remains at $2,500. Titans did not get to the quarterback. They did allow 7 quarterback sacks. Let's go back to the phone. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Matt is up next. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, guys. So I don't want to be a reactionary fire the coach kind of person, but I've also been thoroughly unimpressed with what the product on the field is, especially when it comes to penalties. So I'm just trying to understand what are the penalties that are, just players being bad versus coaching points. Just love to understand that. Thanks, guys.
Good question. Before y'all answer that, the Titans were penalized 9 times today for a total of 68 yards.
So the penalties on special teams, one of them was just probably ants in the pants with Justin Hardy last week. And I'm just talking this season long. I don't want people to get confused because there are no penalties against the special teams, if I'm not mistaken, today.
Not today.
I think it was the first time in a while that
in like
that has
3
happened.
games.
The other ones have been the NFL coming back and apologizing that saying that, hey, we got those wrong.
On special teams.
On
You're talking
special
about
teams.
the illegal formation.
The illegal
on kickoffs.
formations. Because what sucks about the illegal formations is that even a false start classifies as illegal formation. Like Justin Hardy leaving early because he's not used to the new kickoff rule was considered an illegal formation. But they have apologized on numerous penalties to the Tennessee Titans. Now, switching to this game, all week long, they practiced the hard count. They turned, and this is from Brian Callahan in today's press conference after the game. They practiced all day long the hard count, music blaring and all that kind of stuff, and Leroy Watson got a face mask, which I think face masks are typically on the player. False starts like that in a hostile environment are typically on the player not paying attention to the hard count and what it's supposed to be. So in my mind, there's some things you can coach, right? You can coach the hard count and try to mitigate false starts and everything, but there are just some players that have a natural proclivity to get a false start. We saw it last year with it was MPF and Dylan Radins and Andre Dillard. It's just offensive linemen, for whatever reason, they're not being coached to do it. It just happens.
KD, the Titans are 26 in the NFL, penalized an average of 7.5 times per game. So it's bottom 10 in the league. For reference, the worst team is Seattle. They're penalized an average of 8.3 times per game. Where do you, from a player's perspective, draw that line when it comes to penalties between player error and coaching points?
Well, let me go back. There was a year where the Titans weren't very good as far as records concerned, but they were the least penalized team in the NFL. They're very disciplined, right? Variable. They were the least penalized team, and that don't necessarily equate to wins, right? You still got to perform and execute better than your person across from you. So it's twofold. Some of that is coaching, but most of that is a mental aspect and doing your due diligence as a player. So false starts. Most false starts is I'm processing what I got to do. And I can only imagine what offensive linemen are going through as they're going through their calls. Linemen are shifting. My calls are shifting. The ball's about to be snapped. I'm running against the clock. I got to get here. I get that excitement. And I'm thinking through it. And I might have thought I heard the snap count or the clap, whatever, how they do their signals. And I just get antsy. That happens. You have moments of glimpses. I know as a receiver, I've been told and taught, and I upheld this. I don't even listen to the count. I watch the football, right? I know what the count is, so I can kind of anticipate when it's coming, but I'm watching the football and I'm going, just like a defensive lineman would. But there's times when I'm thinking, I might get this ball. Oh, here's this coverage. This guy's on me. He might try to quick jam me. That I'm lose sight of that part of it because I'm so focused on what's in front of me. And so you have a glimpse. So It's a little bit of both. I think it's an emphasis from a coach perspective to say, hey, guys, we got to get better at that. But it becomes on the player to take ownership and accountability to get better depending on what it is. There's some things that just happen. Like if I get beat and I extend my arm and I grab a shoulder pad and I get holding, those are going to happen. As a DB and you grab a guy's jersey and you're trying to stop him from making a catch and you get called for it, those are going to happen. That's going to happen. I think for me, the big thing is where it becomes a discipline thing and a lack thereof is the pre-snap penalties, the false start and the offsides. Those are the things that's not necessarily on coaching. I can coach you to move your feet a little better, get your hips in front of a guy so you don't hold. I can coach you a little bit better as when you seeking for the ball in the air that you don't arm bar and get a holding call on the receiver. I can coach those things up. What I can't coach up is you not paying attention to detail and that ball's still sitting there and you jump off. That's not the coach. That's on the player. You've been taught that since you were playing peewee ball 5 years old. You don't go to that ball snap, right? But it happens because I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to make this play. So it's a little bit of both. And I think it's just an emphasis. In some years, it's more heavier than others. And this seems to be a year that's more heavy as far as play, drive, game-killing penalties.
And it's so I'm with you on that. So it's some of it may be that Leroy Watson's trying to get a little bit of head start because he stinks. Like, right? I mean, like he's outmatched.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be facetious and try and take a side swipe, but the bad players on this team that have gotten false starts are probably trying to compensate that they are bad players. Trying to find an advantage.
Right.
And I will say this, 2022, 2023, and 2024, the Tennessee Titans have been over the league average in penalties by almost one penalty per game. Okay? Now, the difference is that also from 2022, 2023, and 2024, the league average of penalties have gone up, and this year has gone up exponentially. It's the highest growth. So this is a league-wide issue, but you got to be able to mitigate. Just because it's a league-wide issue doesn't mean that it's not a you issue.
Yeah.
And that's not a real excuse, but because you're contributing to the average, obviously, but you have to find ways to correct that. And I think that's why I was very surprised that Leroy Watson got put in. But after those last two penalties, he never got another penalty, right? Yeah. So I guess that's just what you live with. But at the end of the day, it's killing you. Yeah. These penalties are just killing this team.
Yeah. And what was the point of emphasis that the league had this year? I think it was like offensive holding.
Yeah.
It was like, so that number is going to go up because they're kind of triggered to look for a little bit more. Whereas before you would say, because there's holding on every play.
Right.
And they probably could call it on every play, but some of them they let go because it doesn't have any bearing on the play. It was on the backside where the ball was away from them. They didn't call it, but sometimes they call it more than others. And it depends on the staff. And also, I'll say this, even from a high school's perspective, when your supervisor's in attendance, I guarantee you the calls go up. Because, right, they got to call it to the letter because guess what? I want to do postseason. It's not any more money in my own pocket, but that's prestigious, right? To be able to do the AFC championship game, NFC championship game, and even more specifically, the Super Bowl. Very few staffs get called to do Super Bowl based on your performance throughout the year. So, yeah, it's a thing. But I think what you said, Zach, is spot on. I think sometimes you want to be so successful and find an advantage somewhere that again, it goes to what I was saying about you're thinking about everything else, but that one thing, because I got to get back. I got to make sure I don't get the sack. Everybody's talking about I'm getting too many sacks. I'm holding too much, and it works to your detriment sometimes because you do want it so bad. And that's not giving anybody a crutch, but that's kind of how things happen sometimes.
Question, unrelated to this conversation.
More draft talk?
Specifically. No more draft talk.
Come on, man.
The least penalized draft prospects for the 2025. Have either of you guys seen a single hip drop tackle penalty in a game that you have been watching? Has there been a single one in a Titans game this season?
No, but there has been them, but they've never really called them until after the fact. I think there have been a couple people that have been fined for a hip drop tackle after the fact. So we may have seen them in a game. I can't recall everybody that's done that, but
I don't think I've heard a white hat in an NFL game.
I don't
say
think
the
I have
words
either.
Hip drop tackle when he's talking to a crowd.
And
in a
definitely
game
not
this
Tennessee
year.
Titans.
Definitely not in a Titans game.
Yeah.
Just interesting because it was such a big talking point in the offseason.
I felt like I have heard one, but maybe it was preseason.
Well, like most things with these NFL refs, they probably don't know how to call it.
Coach Mack would be proud. 615-737-1045 is how you chime in. This is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. We'll get back into the quarterback discussion when we come back. The Will Levis that we saw today compared to the Levis that we've seen at other points in the 2024 season. This is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. The Titans fall at SoFi Stadium, 27-17, the final at the LA Chargers, sending the Titans to 2-7 in Week 10 of the NFL season. Welcome back. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. The Titans will return to Nissan Stadium to take on the Vikings next week, and they trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They could protect your home, too. Your next play, visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Alongside Titans legend Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons, who you can hear on Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop 1 to 3 every day on The Zone. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is our producer. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on this Veterans Day weekend, and want to take a quick moment to greatly thank all of our veterans listening today and that listen every day on The Zone for your service to this country. Veterans Day coming up, of course, tomorrow. All right, guys, Will Levis, 18 of 23, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, 41 rush yards today on 5 carries, no turnovers for the first time this season. It's felt like every conversation about Will Levis this year has been about the turnovers. That's been the headliner, right? Big and bold is he cannot get through a game without the boneheaded play, without giving the ball to the other team. Okay, so today Will Levis did not give the ball to the other team. Let's put the turnover conversation over to the side here. Completely eliminate that from the discussion. What is the evaluation, I'll start with you, Dice, on the Will Levis that we saw today in L.A. against the Chargers?
Well, I think this goes to show you that football is the ultimate team sport. It's not all one guy. We just tend to do that as people who analyze the game. We isolate people from the team and talk about their ability or lack thereof, right? But today shows you why football is the ultimate team sport. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't have the bonehead plays, but yet they still didn't score points. They still didn't win the football game. And there still were some fundamental holes within that he could still get better as an individual to make the team better. But football is one of the most unique sports in the sense that, especially on offensive football, and the need for 10 guys to do their job in order for one to be successful. And then that one has to make the right decision, deliver, and put people in position for the other 10 guys to be successful. There's nothing else like it in sport. And so all that to say, to your point, Will Levis today, to me, took a step forward in his progression, and I'm basing that on the Will Levis of the last time I saw him. And as a coach, that's all I can ask right now, right? Is that you don't do what you mentioned, the bonehead play, to turn the ball over, things of that nature. Now, to what Zach said earlier, how do you get better from here? Now you got a defense coming that's opposing, and they're gonna do some things. They're probably gonna do some trapping him with the way they move in the secondary and all that kind of stuff. But what do you need to see from him as a coach going forward? I need to see you continue to process a little faster, making decisions faster as far as delivering the football, being more accurate with your throwing, staying in the pocket a little bit more, and delivering. And when you get out of the pocket, still having your eyes up, making plays, taking care of your body. I did see him scramble again and not get down and taking shots he didn't necessarily need to take. Like little stuff of that game just continue to get incrementally better. Now, will that equate to him being at that elite level by the week 17, week 18 of the season? That remains to be seen. But I think the encouraging piece is that he was not the reason why you lost this game today. He wasn't a reason why you didn't win, but he wasn't a major reason why you lost this game. He didn't throw that pick six. He didn't throw that ill-advised throw or anything to that nature. So I can live with that for now, knowing I got another sample coming up to see if you get better from what you did this week to next.
Zach, what kind of quarterback did you see today?
Okay, well, I'm going to go the data side because Brian Callahan has talked about expected points added, shorthand EPA. And that's an efficiency metric, which you can go find on various websites and stuff. So the website I went to for this week only, not including the Monday Night Football game and not including the Sunday Night Football game that's currently playing, he is 9th in the NFL in terms of efficiency. Out of all the quarterbacks that played, typically he's 31st, 32nd, or 30th.
You're saying today he was
Today he was ninth.
Okay. Yeah.
And every other game individually, he's either been 31st or 32nd. Today is ninth. He's got positive EPA. His completion percentage over expected, like I said earlier, was 11 points more than what it should have been. He did everything that you are looking to progress from. And if Brian Callahan, as he has said, I look at efficiency, I look at EPA. If he's looking at that, he's thinking this is a pretty good day to build off of. Yeah. It's not a great day. It's not an elite day. He wasn't out there balling out, but it was a day that marked efficiency. And that's what the Tennessee Titans have liked. If they had this Will Levis week 1 and week 2, we're talking about a different record right now.
They'd be 2-0 to start the season.
They'd be 2-0 to start the season.
Oh, absolutely.
If this Will Levis played in the Colts game, you'd be talking about another win. This is this is the game that they have been wanting to get out of Will Levis, and this is the game that you build upon, like you were talking about. And that also showed up on film. That when we were watching the game, my main takeaway is like, oh crap, I mean, this is a good thing. We don't have to beat Will Levis down all week long on the radio, because really, outside of a few sacks, which again, I can live with the sacks if he shows progress as the season goes on. Like, those are the lumps that a quarterback takes as they're growing through. It was the other unforced errors, like you said. We didn't see that. The data backs it up. And no, this is not me saying that Will Levis is going to be anything, but this is the guy that they have been looking for in several games. And this is the guy that thought they were going to have week 1. And they are now, 8 weeks behind on the progress and development of Will Levis at this point because of his unforced errors. Basically, Will Levis's slate, I think, was marked clean when he came back from injury. This is the guy that you can think you can work with. This is the guy that Brian Callahan thought he could work with, was what you saw today.
This version of him.
This version of him.
It looks like, and again,
I cannot believe I'm an apologist for Will Levis today.
Will Levis stand Zach Lyons.
I don't know if Zach said this or a caller said this earlier, as far as comparison to Mason Rudolph and what he was doing. It's very comparable if you look at their numbers. So he's paid attention. He's watched.
Yep.
He's gotten Sam. I was about to say Sam Ridley. That's one of my former coaches. He's gotten Ridley involved. He targeted him a little bit, got him in the end zone.
Yeah, Ridley today targeted 9 times, caught 5, but for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And
I don't think there was a drop.
No,
I mean, I don't remember one.
I don't think so. I don't think any drops today. He's efficient, high percentage of completion rate. What is it? Yards per attempt was like about 8-9 yards per attempt. So he learned something being out, being able to sit back and watch. Because if you compare the two, I think if you compare the two, is about the same. I don't know if that's good enough for fans. I think from a coach perspective, that's where I need you to be. Now let's get better next week. Because as a fan, it was like, you're the number 1 quarterback. You're QB1. You should be so much better than Mason in their eyes than what you are. And if you're not, then why we just don't go with Mason, the veteran? So, but if they're even right now, based on the production and what we saw, Levis still gets the nod because his upside's a little higher. So let's get better next week, then get better the next week, then get better next week. And if you have a dip or a valley, please don't be a big valley.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? And
this should be the low point. This should be the valley.
Right. Because it felt like we couldn't even get a starting point on talking about him and what are you getting in Will Levis? Because of the turnovers and the fumbles and the interceptions, and it was, okay, it's just not even tenable.
Yeah.
We can't even have a conversation about what he's doing well, what he's not doing well, because it's just the boneheaded plays over and over and over.
That's what their focus was on,
So there's finally a game where you sort of put those, okay, we didn't get those. Now feels like we can actually evaluate 4 quarters of quarterback play and not talk about how we were tearing our hair out because he was making just insane decisions. And at least we're to that baseline after, now he's going to play a Vikings defense that's going to go at them, and they love to force bad decisions. It's what they do. So, you hope it's not 1 step forward and 2 steps back. But
if he had a game like today, statistically, even win or lose,
against the Vikings, that's a win.
Right.
And that's probably a step up, to be honest with you, because this is a much, I know that the stats will tell you that the Chargers are a really good team, and they are one of the best defenses in the NFL. Let me tell you something. The Vikings are the best defense in the NFL. By far. Doesn't matter what the stats say. They blitz, they pressure, they play better quarterbacks, they've played better teams. They are the better defense because they are also the most confusing defense. You just go Google on Twitter or search on Twitter, Brian Flores, LOL. People literally send clips and put clips up say, LOL, can't believe Brian Flores is getting away with this because he's showing like 3-man up on the front, 5 people in the back, and then he's like rushing, he's blitzing from crazy directions. It all switches post snap. And there's the only defense I would rank them Vikings, Broncos, Chargers. Chargers is still a top 3 defense. That's how I'd rank them right now based on what I've seen and watched. And listen, if he goes out and puts out a performance like this against the Vikings, that's still a performance in the step in the right direction. Because I think what we're all expecting is that we're going to see Will Levis from week 1.
You're going to see a regression. And that's what I hope you don't have. And
that is a reasonable expectation for Will Levis, by the way.
And if he doesn't, if he has a solid performance similar to today, win or lose, I think you're saying, okay, he is starting to learn to pick up, and he's getting better. And that's all you can ask for.
Took 7 sacks today, so we're still going to be talking about the processing element of it, and the game maybe still moving a little too fast in certain moments, but still, that's just a baseline conversation about evaluating a quarterback that we weren't even able to have before because of the turnovers, and it just wasn't a tenable situation.
It's just inconsistency, too, because I went back and watched the Calvin Ridley touchdown, the very first one, and I was watching on the dots. I finally figured out how to find the dots that everybody shares, for play, and you see him, he steps up into the pocket and makes that throw, and it's with anticipation. It may be a little short or a little behind or a little lagging, but it still was right there. And so you can see that he can do it. We just haven't been able to see consistency. But this is, again, I go back, the efficiency of this game should be a real talking point throughout the week of now let's see you do it against an even better defense.
Well, and that one in particular, he looked the safeties off, but one thing we're not talking about in that play, he had time. Yeah, because
he also made time for himself.
And most quarterbacks, even Will Levis, you let them sit back there, like play 7-on-7. You have time. Most of them are going to make these throws. Even Will Levis, as whatever you think about him, he can spin it. And you give a guy back there, he can just play pitch and catch. He's going to make the throws. And that was an example of that. The problem is he gets happy feet. He moves the pocket when he shouldn't be moving the pocket. He steps up when he shouldn't. You know what I mean? He doesn't let go of the football when he should.
He doesn't throw away the football. See, that was a couple of things that all those things you described are stuff that Mason Rudolph did. Yeah. But Mason Rudolph never really had that wow throw. And we saw really 2 wow throws from Will Levis today. So right now, you're seeing the reason why they've always preached patience and why they've always preached if he's healthy, he is our quarterback going forward. And it's the right move. I've always said that's the right move.
Yeah. Well, as we look ahead to next week's opponent in the Look Ahead, presented by Eurofix, let me remind you, Eurofix repairs everything European that you drive and below dealer pricing. ASE certified technicians, a local company that has serviced Middle Tennessee for over 2 decades. Visit EurofixOnline.com. Next week, the Titans return to Nissan Stadium to host the Minnesota Vikings. It is a noon kickoff. 11 o'clock is when Titans Countdown hits the air. The Lee Company Countdown to kickoff, of course, at 9 a.m. right here on The Zone. Titans Talkback after the game. And keeping it on the theme of the Vikings defense, they are 6th in the NFL in sacks with 27 as a team, but number 1 in blitz percentage. 39.9% of the time, the Vikings are sending extra pressure. Nobody's surprised by that, right? That is a Brian Flores defense. It is what they do. And guys, you got to think, if the Vikings that played the Jags today are at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, every opportunity will be there for the Titans to get a win. Now, look, you're 2-7, and playoffs seem like a distant dream at this point. And I know there's a lot of Titans fans that are very much in the mode of lose for a draft pick, but that's not what they're going to try to do. They're going to do everything in their power to win this game. And if the Vikings that showed up in Jacksonville today with Sam Darnold throwing 3 interceptions and only scoring 12 points on 4 field goals, and the Jags couldn't do anything on offense, A, because the Vikings defense is as good as it is, and Mac Jones, B, was the starter at quarterback with Lawrence out. All that to say, if that team shows up at Nissan Stadium, Titans are going to have a chance to win that game.
Yeah. And I also look at it this way, if he if that team shows up, that's a moment that as a coaching staff and as a team, you have to rise up and take that win.
Vikings are 7-2, by the way.
Yeah. So you have to do it. And I know people are concerned about draft picks and all this stuff. If you're in the top 5 at the end of the year, you're getting one of the 5 blue chip players in this process, in this draft class, unless you draft poorly or trade back. But at the end of the day, a win like that is just proof of concept. And that's really what this team is looking for. They're looking for proof of concept with Brian Callahan. We got a glimpse of that last week.
Yeah.
They're looking for proof of concept with Will Levis in terms of his development. We got a little bit of a glimpse of that today.
Yeah.
But now it's all about this season is all about just finding out who you are, what you can be, what you want to be, and what is Will Levis's role in all of that.
Yeah. I asked a question to you guys several weeks ago, and I want to pose it again now that we're and that's kind of unfair because Will hasn't been playing, but the quarterbacks in the division, as we're watching Stroud play, is Will Levis still 3? Or will Trevor Lawrence still 2? Or do you bump him up?
If I'm going to cheat a little because I'm going to factor in the contract and the situation of being able to get out of Will Levis, I would much rather be in the Titans quarterback situation.
Yeah, instead of
than
ranking quarterbacks, ranking situations.
Ranking situations, I'd rather be in Will Levis's situation. Obviously, Texans, who are on behind us, have the best quarterback situation by far.
Yeah.
I think the Titans have the second best quarterback situation, and the Colts right now, in their entire situation, probably has the worst.
Yeah.
Because not only has Joe Flacco lost all of his mojo now that he's been named official starter while Anthony Richardson got benched, they're still sticking with Joe Flacco. And
threw 3 picks today, including an early pick
and
6.
a fumble. He lost a fumble too. And now you're looking at Trevor Lawrence, who's likely to be out all year. I mean, that seems to be the way that's trending. And now you have Mac Jones, and you've now gave this guy an extension that you can't get out of, and now he's going to be out for a whole year.
Yep.
And how long will it take for him to be good next year? And are you going to still have the same coaching staff next year? Because this coaching staff kind of sucks for Jacksonville.
So you're saying ranking the Titans QB situation second just because of the ease with they can get out of it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's when all 3 of these quarterbacks have their major drawbacks. I think that's the way you got to look at it.
But you could look at that with the Colts as well, right?
Yeah,
Same
but
draft
I mean,
class.
they have a first-round draft pick. See, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Here it's a second-round
He's
draft
a top
pick.
5 pick.
Yeah.
That's true. Not making it work with a top 5 pick is worse than not making it work with a second round
And
pick.
also, I still think that Will Levis then is also still a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson.
I agree with that for sure. If you're just going off of ability
in the NFL, what you've seen in the NFL, I think it's not even close.
Yeah, if we're talking about actually playing football and not jumping high and running fast, then I agree with you there.
or the arm straights are comparable too.
Yeah. 615-737-1045 is the number. Titan Willie is next. Hey, Titan Willie.
Yo, what's up, guys? How's it going?
How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. We're on the way back from LA right now. Me and a buddy of mine went to the game.
You're driving?
Self-driving car, dude. I'm hands-free right now.
Okay.
I just want to share kind of what we've seen from the crowd. Dude, like, SoFi was electric. It was amazing, especially those first few drives. The team looked like they were going to pull out the win. And then you kind of start seeing it fall apart. And, like, in the crowd, us Titans fans were just talking. It's just crazy because we're seeing the same thing over and over. And everyone was just kind of, like, throwing their hands up metaphorically, like, when is this going to end? I had some interesting discussion in the parking lot with a few of the fans. And, everybody's debating on what player we should get in the draft. What quarterback are we getting? But I think one thing that some of us were talking about was the coaching staff. Some of us were talking about, like, we don't think Callahan's going to last through the week. We'd love to hear what you guys think, potentially how we're going to move forward, and if this is potentially even a franchise issue. We'd love to hear what you guys think. I appreciate you guys. God bless.
Thanks, Titan Willie.
Yeah, Callahan's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really partied hard and so fine. Hey, listen, I don't blame you. Because Callahan's going to definitely make it through the week. I don't know why he wouldn't. The quarterback just showed progress, and that's what you've been looking for. I think that we would be seeing a different offense if we had a more tenable right tackle situation. Because we've seen that, these last 2 weeks before today, The Tennessee Titans have gotten 400 yards of total offense in back-to-back games for the first time since 2020. Yeah, I believe it's 2020, not 2021. I believe it's 2020, which is a good sign. And I don't think it's a scheme issue. And listen, now Brian Callahan's not perfect. I think the fade to Josh Wiley, I think that's another example of him trying to outsmart the defense or outsmart the situation because he's trying to draw the pass interference. He's got a isolated corner and a rookie corner on his big old tight end. We're trying to draw the pass interference. Will Levis lets it off a little late, but still, you got to know who you're working with on these plays. And that's a play I'm like, man, at the time, I believe Tony Pollard had 8-point-something yards per carry and Tajay Spears had 5-something or 6-something. And I'm like, your run game's been working. That's the play I think you run twice. I think you run on third down. If you don't get it, you're probably pretty close and you run again. And they had to settle for the field goal. Yeah. There's situations like that where that pops up, but I feel like week to week we see those less and less, and I think that's again sign of progress. Like I understand that it's really hard, and it's much easier to blame one person than it is to blame 11 or 53 or however many you think is to blame on the player. So it's always good, having that target on one person is always much easier. But at the end of the day, I think some of the situation is just tied to bad play by bad players.
So I tend to think like you have the special teams coach that is going to be in conversation. And I think somebody said it earlier. I don't know if it was Zach or Brent talked about he would be a candidate to be let go early before the season ended. And if somebody's going to dive on the sword, it's not Callahan. It's going to be probably something like that. However, if you look on the other side of that, you start letting go of people that you have hand selected at this stage of your tenure. It looks like you're in a disarray. Like you're, to your point, proof of product, right? Proof of we are doing the things the right way, doing what we need to be successful based on my assessment as a first-time head coach and what I want to accomplish for this franchise. So if you start letting go of positional coaches and coordinators and you haven't got a full season to even make that, then you look like you're in disarray. And the same could be said about Rand and Amy as far as why would you let Callahan go? You went and invested. You let go of a coach to bring this guy in. If I just start letting people go and get a new head coach, and we've seen franchises do that. We've seen them. They fire one after 1 year and go to the next. Get fire that guy after 2 years, go to the next. Trying to find that magic potion, right? It just gives the sense of being in a disarray. Just everything is in a flux. And I don't think the organization at this point can afford to give the impression that they don't have a vision going forward. So the coaching staff, I believe, will be here. Now, it remains to be seen. They keep going downhill as far as special teams, maybe. But I don't think it's going to be until the offseason if that happens. So Callahan, no. I think to your point, Zach, if you're looking at this strictly data and numbers, you can make an argument for anybody to be let go on any team other than probably Detroit Lions and the Chiefs right now.
Yeah. Up against this, we're going to take a break. Your last chance for phone calls, though, 615-737-1045 if you want to chime in. As we go until 9 o'clock, Titans fall to the Chargers in L.A. 27-17. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Elite Company. All you need, visit them online at elitecompany.com. A crazy day, especially in the noon slate across Week 10. We'll get into a little bit of the NFL action around the Titans today when we come back on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. Titans fall 27-17 at the LA Chargers. They are 2-7 on the year. We'll head back home to host the Vikings at Nissan Stadium. We'll be talking about it all week long, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone, alongside Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons. I'm Lucas Panzica, wrapping things up here, taking it until 9 o'clock. Your last chance to get in, 615-737-1045 is the number. Crazy noon slate in Week 10 across the NFL. 6 one-score games. Guys, the headliner probably the Kansas City Chiefs, staying undefeated because, of course, they did. They're 9-0. Broncos are lining up a 35-yard game-winning field goal, and you're just watching them get ready to kick that thinking, man, Bo Nix just led the Broncos to the first loss of the year for the Chiefs. He was 22 of 30, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, blocked decisively, not like a fingertip on it, like into an armpit, right? And the Chiefs are 9-0, and there's a big celebration, and it just seems like the type of team that can't have a single thing go wrong for them. When Rand Carthon talks about the ball bouncing your way, and then Brian Callahan followed that up with good teams create their own luck.
Yep.
The Chiefs are the Chiefs not just a picture-perfect definition of that right now?
I mean, for me, Patrick Mahomes, last year was his MVP year, and he didn't get it. I thought that he should have got MVP. He really carried that team on the back. This year,
you thought he should have got it?
Yeah, I do. I think if he was easily the most valuable player for his team because they still won. Everybody counted him out. Everybody counted the entire team out. What's wrong with the Chiefs? What's wrong with the Chiefs? And here comes Patrick Mahomes just to carry them.
Yeah, but you got to talk about the defense at that point, right?
Well, I think this year is the year that you're talking about the defense, because this year the defense pulled up for most of the year, and they prevented a slow start for the Kansas City Chiefs, because last year that wasn't the case. Last year the defense was their cause of the slow start. This year, I think that you're looking at the Chiefs team that is probably the most dangerous of all Chiefs teams that we've seen, because they still don't have Isaiah Pacheco back. Like, well, he's due back in a couple of weeks. So, like, I'm looking at this Chiefs team. Like, once they get him back, man, this team is going to be dangerous. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how you stop them. I mean, well, I guess we see the Bills versus Chiefs next week. So I think that's their best chance of losing a game right now.
I mean, I'm not a defense coordinator in the National Football League, so I have my opinion on how you attack him. But again, that's easy to say from the sidelines, right? If what I say went, I'm sure all these people that watch film on it would be doing it. But, I thought he was third in MVP last year personally. Yeah. I thought McCaffrey and Jackson were the top two, and then him being third. And this year, it's hard not to put Jackson, Mahomes, and then the sentimental people are like Goff.
I'd put Josh Allen in the conversation.
Again. Yeah, exactly. Those are kind of your sentimental picks. Josh Allen last year was in the conversation again. But I think it's like anything else. When you have a talent like a Tom Brady, Mahomes, let's see, even Joe Montana, I'll even go back even further. When you have a talent like that, it's hard not to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. But again, if compared to, let's go to the NBA. There was years where LeBron probably should have been MVP every year.
Yeah.
But he was going against his own legend. And that's kind of how Mahomes is. And so my barometer for him is much higher than all these other guys. But from the eye test, I see what Jackson is doing. Like, it's hard not to say he's special. It's Allen, what he's doing this year is not special. And my sentimental pick is Goff. I just think a guy, I love what he stands for, what he's done, what he's meant to an organization. He was a castaway, like, we don't want you no more. Then that guy comes to win a Super Bowl in the city he was drafted in, and he's my sentimental pick, right? Just to somebody new and into a city that's just starving for something to happen for success. And so he's my sentimental pick. But the top three right now are clearly Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson.
Yeah, nobody had a more MVP type performance this week in the NFL than Lamar Jackson on Thursday Night Football.
And thank you for my fantasy team.
I'm playing against him. Joe Burrow, I will say, is having a really good season. I mean, he threw 9 touchdowns over these last 2 weeks, but they're not winning.
Yeah, they're not winning. They're 4-6.
And that's definitely because of the defense.
Yes, no doubt. Earlier this morning, Panthers walk it off against the Giants in Munich in overtime. Panthers have won 2 straight.
Yeah.
Apologies to the entire country of Germany for sending those 2 teams over there for the Munich game. Patriots smother the Bears 19-3. They hold Caleb Williams and the Bears to less than 145 yards of offense and sack Caleb Williams 9 times today. So the Patriots, a week after losing to the Titans, beat the Bears. The Steelers outlast the Commanders 28-27. Russell Wilson throwing 3 touchdowns. A bunch of walk-offs today. The Saints over the Falcons on a last-second field goal. The Niners over the Bucks on a last-second field goal, 23-20. And Christian McCaffrey is back. Didn't light the world on fire. Had over 100 yards of total offense today. But, man, it felt like every game in the noon slate was just electric. And then the late afternoon slate came around, and it was just kind of a drag with the Cardinals blowing out the Jets and the Eagles blowing out the Cowboys.
But how much better does McCaffrey make everybody else? Because of his reputation, because of his ability. So, he didn't have a great number. He's just now getting back only 13 carries. But I tell you what, once he gets into game mode, and that's going to be a team that's been a kind of a sleeping giant, I'm kind of just giving the NFC to the Lions, but San Francisco's starting to get healthy.
Lions are needing a comeback right now, down 23-7 to the Texans at halftime. I mean, what is more interesting? Is the top of the AFC more intriguing or the top of the NFC? Like, we have these clear-cut best teams, Lions in the NFC, Chiefs in the AFC. But what's the more interesting race for the 1 seed right now?
The NFC, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just really just Chiefs, and the Chiefs are so far out ahead that really
they're 2 games ahead of the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty far ahead, it feels like.
Yeah, and
they beat the Ravens.
And really, they're a toe tap away from not beating them, though.
Yeah.
Right?
But they beat them. 3 losses. That's going to be really hard for the Ravens to overcome, even if they tie, because guess what? Head-to-head. So, I mean...
Well, you've got the Vikings 7-2.
Yeah.
Who are starting to take...
Commanders.
The Commanders are right in the thick of things. They're 7-3 after picking up a loss today. So there is starting to be some separation. But the Lions, if they can't come back in this second half, may catch their second loss of the season to the Texans. So... I don't know. The Steelers are 7-2 as well. That's plugging along at 7-2.
The AFC is that one because Baltimore is getting better, and they have the best formula for success right now. I mean, KC without the consistent running back, although Hunt's starting to get a little better too. With Derrick Henry, you can't game plan from Lamar Jackson. Even when you think you do, you don't.
It's the best offense in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah.
Best, and their defense started to figure some things out. Obviously, that's why they're winning. Buffalo, whose defense has been solid, and their offense has been solid. Pittsburgh, nobody's even talking about them. That might be the best kept AFC team secret. They've always had a good defense, and now Russell Wilson started to play well, and they've gotten some pieces together, and they always kind of recipe that hard-nosed, run the football, efficient. Who am I missing in the AFC? Houston. People forget about how Houston was the darling kind of picked as AFC, and right now they're beating up on Detroit.
Yeah.
So to me, the AFC is going, and Denver's gotten better with a rookie quarterback. Now I'm gonna count them off because they got a rookie quarterback, but they're playing a lot better. But to me, the AFC is. I
think the AFC is the most interesting outside of the race for the number 1. Because if we're talking about what's the most interesting race for the number 1 overall seed, you just named about a couple of divisions. First off,
So you're giving number 1 to KC right now?
Well, yeah, because I look at it like this. Who has the easiest division? Kansas City.
They do right now.
I mean, technically the Texans do, but they probably are not as impervious to maybe a misstep here and there as the Chiefs are. The Ravens, the Steelers, and the Bengals are eventually going to all cannibalize themselves because the Bengals are still in it, as a wild card spot, so they're going to be fighting, and they all still play each other, right?
Yeah.
So I look over here, like the Cardinals are not really. I look at it this way: the Eagles are still 7-2. The Commanders are 7-3. They're in the same division. The Cowboys and Giants are non-factors, but those are two guys that are two teams still competing for the number one overall seed. The Lions and the Vikings, 7-1, 7-2, still competing for that overall number one overall seed.
I got you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, number one, I would say I will say the most interesting division though is the NFC West. Cardinals 6-4, 49ers 5-4, Rams are playing tonight 4-4, and they're getting healthier.
Tomorrow night,
tomorrow night, and the Rams are getting healthier. Seahawks are 4-5. They're kind of you can toss them to the side, but those first three teams are all teams that can make the playoffs at any time.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you give that explanation, I see what you're saying. Yes, I agree with you then.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
I think AFC is still the better conference.
Yeah.
But I think the NFC is the more interesting storylines because we got a lot of teams that we've never seen before too.
I just there's always it's hard to win every game in the National Football League. It's been proven, right? It's only been one team to ever do that for a reason, right? And especially with free agency and the balance of the league. However, there's going to be a down period for the Chiefs. The problem, I say problem, not a problem for everybody else in the league, is their downtime is one game. Like, you know what I mean? They'll drop one, then they'll run off 4 more, then drop one.
We thought it happened today.
Yeah.
And they still escaped with the win.
It's just, for me, I when interesting enough, the previous Chiefs teams have gotten better week to week. This one has just been already up top that you worry or wonder if it's going to be the opposite this time around when it gets to the late part of the season. Now, Mahomes and those guys are just different. I get that. But they are a little bit older. Are they going to have that downslide at the wrong time? And that's what I think the AFC is hoping for to give them that opportunity. Because the only ones that can push them is the
playoff Chiefs. Playoff Chiefs are just a different breed than even regular season Chiefs, and that's the other issue.
Real quick, guess Chiefs are 9-0. How many of those 9 wins were one-score games?
I would say 7.
I was going to say 7 or 8.
7-0 in one-score games. DeAndre Hopkins, 56 yards today on 4 catches for anyone keeping count of D-Hop in Kansas City as they got it done.
Over there.
Having a terrible time on the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, that game against Buffalo is going to be a good one. Titans fans will have plenty of time to get home after the Vikings game to watch that late afternoon kickoff. Titans fall today against the Chargers 27-17. Appreciate all of you being with us on Titans Talkback. Remember that Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. The studio producer is Joseph Bonanno. The promotions director is Rich Ferris. Director of sales is Hunter Rice. The general manager, Allison Warren. The operations manager is Paul Mason. The executive producer of Titans Radio is Rhett Bryan. For Kevin Dyson and Zach Lyons and our producer, Jackson Williams, I'm Lucas Panzica. This has been Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone.